The more experienced you become in your job and the more effective you become at time management, the more likely it is that you're going to be assigned multi-task projects. You're going to be assigned to do things that have a multiple or a variety of tasks involved, and your ability to organize these jobs and to do them well is going to be a critical factor in your success. In fact, a study at Stanford University that studied the qualities and characteristics of men and women who moved up into the upper echelons of management found that the number one most identifiable and measurable quality was the ability to bring together a team of people and to work with that team in cooperation to complete a complex task. And everywhere around you, you'll find that the men and women who are at the top of their fields are those who, in most cases, who have developed the ability to assemble a team, to work as part of a team, and to channel that team's energies and abilities toward completing a task or a project on time. Now, when we talked a little bit earlier, we talked about the importance of time management, about the importance of setting goals, and the importance of setting priorities, and the importance of getting yourself organized and getting things done. Now, this all comes together in the multitask job. Look around you and ask, what are the multitask jobs that you engage in? Even something like planning a party is a multitask job. Producing a newsletter is a multitask job. Making a decision on a new piece of equipment might be a multitask job. So you will find yourself surrounded by multitask jobs, and the importance of your work is determined by the number of multitask jobs you do. One of my favorite lines is the line from the Bible that says, "O good and faithful servant, you have been master over small things, I will make you master over large things." What this means in the world of work is that if you become a master over complex tasks, you're going to have an opportunity to work with much more complex tasks and be paid much more for it. Now, the second key is that planning and organizing skills are the core skills of success in management. The ability to plan and organize your own work, then to plan and organize the work of one more and two more and several other people is absolutely essential to your success. And your ability to plan and organize effectively and well all comes to bear in these complex tasks. So here's how you perform a complex task. Here are the basic rules. Number one, define the ideal results. Define the ideal results. Ask yourself, if we performed this task to distinction, what would the result look like? What would the result accomplish? What would the result achieve? And define the ideal results, point of view of the person or persons who have to use what this team produces. If you're producing a product, say, what would our customers say if we produced the perfect product? If you're putting together any kind of a strategy, just always say, what would be the ideal results? And here's the key. Start with the goal and work back. Start with the goal and work back. This has been the key to successful business building and project management for years. Define the goal and work back from the goal to the present time. Well, point number 4 is to set a deadline. Once you've determined exactly what the ideal project will look like, set a deadline and determine the date upon which the project will be complete. One of the things that I suggest, by the way, is build in a fudge factor. If the project is important, and the more important it is that you build in fudge or extra time to provide for unexpected exigencies. Number 5, once you've set a date and a deadline and you define the goal, make a complete list of everything that has to be done, every single activity that has to be completed in order to complete the job. Start with the very last thing that will happen just before the job is done. What's the second to the last thing? What's the third to the last thing? And work all the way back to the present day to work out a complete list of every single activity so that you have a roadmap. When this roadmap is complete, the job will be done in its entirety. Number 6 is ask yourself, what additional information will you require? What is it that you don't know right now? And make getting that information a task. Put it down as a task, as one of the things that has to be done. Also, when you put it down as a task, you will assign a timeline to that task, and you will design your entire project so that getting that piece of information becomes a critical part of it. Number 7 is determine your limiting step. Now, the limiting step concept we talked about a little bit earlier. I want to talk about it again. It's called your choke point. The choke point has one simple definition. It determines the speed at which you get from where you are to where you want to go. So ask yourself, what is the limiting step that determines the speed at which we complete this project? What is the limiting step that determines how fast we get from where we are to where we want to go? What part of the project takes the longest? Very often, the part of the project that takes the longest becomes the determining factor in how long it will take to finish the whole project. So ask yourself, what is our limiting step? And then ask yourself, what can we do to alleviate this limiting step? Is there anything that we can do to speed things up? Very often, you will find shortcuts, you will find time-saving devices, you will find established methods and principles, and so on, but the limiting step becomes the critical factor, not only in determining the deadline, but in determining how capable and competent you appear to others when it comes time to saying that we'll have this job done by a certain time. You can't go back and say afterwards, well, I didn't know it would take this long because, unfortunately, you just look foolish. All right, number 8. There are 2 ways to organize a multitask project. The first way to organize the project is what is called sequential, the sequential way. Now, the sequential way is when there are several jobs within the multitask project that can be done in order. First one can be done, and then the second can be done, and the third can be done, so that each of them are sequential, but each of them requires that the previous one be done first. For instance, someone has to write something, someone has to edit it, someone has to typeset it, someone has to do layout with it, and so on. So therefore, the writing would come first, then the editing, and then the typesetting, then the layout, and so on. Now, the other way that you can organize a project is parallel. There are many tasks that can be done at the same time. There are many tasks where you can begin working on one part, someone else can begin working on another, and you can work on several tasks on a parallel basis. Let me give you a very simple example of a project management chart. Very important way of thinking. Across the top of every project management chart is time. Now, the time may be days, the time may be weeks, months, years, it doesn't matter. Down the side, you have tasks. Now, these are the things that have to be done. So what you do is you lay them out in a chart like this, and let's say you lay it out over a period of 4 months. And here you have 4 months, and the months are January, February, March, and April. You have worked back and determined that it takes you 4 months to do the job. So here you have completion. Completion is at this point. You then work the task back, and you can find that these are the different things that have to be done over the course of this particular task. When this is done, this can be done at the same time. When this is this way far along, this can begin. These two can work parallel. Some cannot be started until others are done, and so on. But by laying it out like this, suddenly you have a perfect picture of what is necessary to be effective in completing this task. Now, the 10th critical point, once you have this organization chart, is to assign and delegate. Assign and delegate, which means that you bring your team together, and the very best way to do this is through discussion and dialogue, talking about what needs to be done, dividing it up, have people take different parts of the task, but assign every single one of the individual parts of the task that need to be done, and delegate it, and delegate every single one with a deadline. And your deadline is for completion, and your deadline always contains a fudge factor. When you assign and delegate parts of the task, build in what is called a review process. That means time and place where you will check and see how well they're doing. It may be once a week, it may be every Wednesday, it may be every 2 weeks, but a review process is absolutely essential. If the project is worth doing, it's worth reviewing on a regular basis. Number 12, the key to successful project management, and many people say that this is the crux of it, is ask yourself, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? What are all the things that can possibly go wrong? Now, here's where you have to take into consideration Murphy's laws. There are 5 Murphy's laws. You're familiar with the first 2. The first of Murphy's law says that whatever can possibly go wrong will go wrong, and that will be true in a project. The second is that of all the things that can possibly go wrong, the worst possible thing will go wrong. So you ask, what's the worst possible thing that can go wrong here? The third of Murphy's law is no matter how much time you allocate, it takes longer than you plan. The fourth is no matter how much money you allocate, it costs more than you expected. And the fifth of Murphy's laws is before you do anything, you have to do something else first. So take those 5 laws into consideration when planning, and never expect to violate the laws, because that will just lead to foolishness and embarrassment. Remember, your success is determined by how well you do these projects. Number 13 is ask yourself, what are all the problems that you're likely to have in the course of putting this program together? Engage in what is called crisis anticipation. Crisis anticipation is something that project leaders and successful executives always do and they say, what are all the crises or unexpected reverses that could occur, and then have a plan B. A plan B is an alternative plan that you have to fall back on in the likelihood that your worst possible things could possibly happen. Always be ready with a plan B. The most successful men and women alive are those who have already developed an alternative before the rubber hits the road, before the vehicle hits the wall, if you like. Number 14 is use what is called a storyboard. Now, a storyboard is a visual representation of a particular project that was developed by the Walt Disney Corporation, and it's absolutely an outstanding way of increasing your effectiveness. Take a large board. You can use a cork board. You can use a visual board. What I have found is you can now use stick-on notes as part of storyboarding, and take what is called and put a header. And the header is the name of the project. Below the header have subheads, and each of these subheads is a part of the project. You can have as many as you need, but below each of the subheads there is a task. And there's a series of cards underneath here. Now, sometimes these tasks can be in different colors so that they can be assigned to different people. And what you do is you then put pictures up here, and these pictures or these numbers or these tasks can then be moved around. They can be moved around so that you have more under one or you have larger ones under another, but you have a visual picture of how the project goes together. Sometimes you can have a storyboard that shows them in sequence, and these will be timed sequence. These may be months. These may be people. These may be particular project areas. But storyboarding is a very powerful way for everybody to get a visual picture of what you're trying to accomplish and then to contribute ideas to this visual picture. Now, the 15th key with regard to project management is the type of problems that are likely to occur. The first problem is expecting everything to go well. Expecting everything to go well and not expecting there to be any problems. And we find that the very best people are the ones who are always aware that they'd like to have difficulties. The 16th is trying to do too much at once. Trying to hurry. Trying to do too much at once because you fall behind. The third key that you have is not allowing enough time to complete the project because you didn't realize that it would take that much. Now, finally, the last key, and it's one of the most important rules of time management, I call it Tracy's Law. Now, Tracy's Law, it's because nobody's ever seen this but me. And Tracy's Law says that the difficulties of performing any task increase with the square of the number of steps in the task. By difficulties, I mean the cost, or the potential cost, the potential problems, and the potential time involved. Let me give you an example. If a person is going to do a single task that is just one step, you are going to pick up the telephone and call. All right, that has a square of 1, which means, let's put this down here, square of 1. This means that the square of 1 is 1. The simplicity of the task is at a level of 1, or what we call the complexity. It's Tracy's Law of complexity. Now, if there are 2 steps to it, then you have 2 steps, but it's 2 steps squared. So now the level of complexity, which means the potential cost, potential problems, and potential time involved, goes to 4. If there are 3 steps involved, 3 steps squared will be 9. So the potential complexity, or the length of time, the potential cost, the potential problems, it doesn't mean that they will all occur. It means that the potential for them goes up with the square of the number of steps. And if you go to 4 steps, and that's squared, it's 16. If you go to 5 steps and that's squared, it's 25. Now, what does this mean? It means that if you can simplify by going from 5 steps to 4, you reduce the complexity from 25 to 16, which is almost 50%. So it's an extraordinary, extraordinary difference. Always, always, always in large projects, simplify, simplify, simplify. Simplification is the hallmark of the superior human being, of the superior executive. Let me just end with this one critical point, and it's this, is that your ability to manage multitask projects is the core skill where the essence of everything that you know and all your abilities come together. Your intelligence, your planning ability, your organizing ability, your personality, your knowledge of your field, everything comes together in managing multitask complex. And the more and the better you do of it, not only the more results you'll get, the more money you make, the happier you'll be, but the more successful you'll be in every single part of your life.